Hey Growth Techs, and we are back. I'm Tyler Sumala, the creator of Growth Tech, and today we're addressing a question that every architecture leader has had to tackle at some point. How do you start a marketing strategy from scratch? We're joined by Jason Altman, an architect from my home state of Michigan.
My name is Jason Altman. I work at WLP Associates. I'm currently the senior project architect there, and we do all sorts of different things. We're both architectural and engineering, so we have structural engineer in-house as well. And so we do some just structural projects, and then obviously ones that carry both architecture and structures together.
In this episode, we dive into the state of marketing in the architecture industry, the common mistakes that most firms make, and how Jason and his firm can build a thriving marketing strategy with limited resources. But before we begin, a huge thanks to Gelt for sponsoring Season 2. They've made managing my business and personal taxes stress-free, and I highly recommend that you check them out at joingelt.com. Plus, be sure to mention Growth Tech when you schedule a consultation to get 10% off your first year with Gelt. And if this is your first time listening to the Growth Tech podcast, here's the gist. There are somewhere around 30,000 architecture firm owners and leaders in the US today alone, but there's virtually no place for them to chat about the question that fuels their business. How do I find, attract, and win the best clients for my firm? So that's why I created this podcast, to tackle your real questions so you can walk away with actionable insights. And if you like the podcast, then you'll love The Studio, which is a private membership for architecture leaders with steps, strategies, and support to grow your business. And actually, everyone in Season 2 is a member, which you'll hear about at the end of the episode. If you want a taste of what's inside The Studio, then be sure to join my free newsletter at growthatech.com/join, where I share free sales and marketing growth hacks with more than 10,000 architecture leaders every Sunday morning. So go and join right now and enjoy the show. All right, well, let's jump into the challenge that you're presented with right now. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, so right now where I find ourselves is we're kind of at a point where we want to rebrand and remarket ourselves. Maybe not so much rebrand, but definitely remarket and get ourselves more visible out there to the world, if you will. Our goal first is local and then go from there. And so right now the challenge is, how do you figure out, or I guess, kind of taking a step back and saying, starting from scratch, how do you market an AE firm so that you can market both services and do that appropriately?
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about what the current marketing strategy is, if there is one.
Yeah, I don't think there's a direct marketing strategy. We deal a lot with referrals or word of mouth. And at least that's my perception from what I've seen the last few months, is that there really isn't like a set in stone marketing. And based on my conversations, that's something that we want to be better at. And so I'm championing that here and want to take that on.
Cool. And do you know what kind of marketing they've tried in the past?
I don't, but I do think there was some email, like cold email type stuff. I think there was when direct mail was bigger. I think there was a lot of direct mail that went out, and I think those were before the more digital stuff. I can tell you, even just as late, I took over doing the LinkedIn because it was just kind of like a page there. It was just a, we're on there to be on there kind of a thing. So there really hasn't, from my knowledge, been a big digital push or a big, I'll say, more modern attempt at the marketing.
Yeah, sure. And how long's the firm been around for again?
Since 1975.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so most of the business comes from referrals and word of mouth. That makes sense. It's kind of found itself in a legacy situation because you have a really good reputation around town. Never a bad situation to be in. But you want to bring the marketing a little bit into the digital age and start getting the voice out there, getting a little bit more brand recognition, it sounds like. So what's the primary goal that you have in mind and with expanding the marketing?
The primary goal for myself would be to be able to get into different areas that we're maybe not specializing in now, but we want to. So one of those areas, like I said, I come from a multifamily background. And although we've done some of that, that's maybe not been like the bread and butter. And I want to start being able to market for two reasons. One, it's to keep keep our name out there and to keep it in front of people, but two, to be able to go to people and let them know that we're open for business in a sense, when we have the abilities to do these types of projects.
Got it. So it sounds like you have two goals in place, right? One is that you want to market more so you can expand into new markets, like multifamily. And the other reason is because you want to maintain visibility in your local region. Is that relatively accurate?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, absolutely correct.
And the primary goal with doing this is going to be basically to have more conversations, and ideally, obviously, land more clients with the new markets and with your existing market.
Correct.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think internally too, one of the ideas here is that we don't want. I mean, although word of mouth is great, I don't want to just rely on that stream. I want other people to know that we're there, and we want to grow a little bit, right? Like we're not trying to add 50 people in the next year, maybe, but I think it's always it's always smart to continue to think about that. And one way of doing that is to be able to get projects in, right? And so we want to expand within our region first, and then keep seeing where that takes us from there.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point. We should pause on that for a moment, because this idea of, getting most of your clients through referrals and through word of mouth is generally very highly celebrated in the architecture industry. Like, so much so that people like to brag about what percentage of their clients come from referral and word of mouth. And while there's some good that comes out of that, right? The good thing means that if that's happening, that people are talking about your work, they're excited about the work, and that you've served the customers and clients that you've had in the past really well. So that's the good thing that means. But there is a bad side of that, which is just massive exposure for your business and risk if that one channel and pipeline ever goes away. And typically when that goes away is when the economy is bad. That's when people stop recommending you. That's when referrals and word of mouth slow down, because everyone's struggling. And so no one's going to be like, hey, you should go hire this architect with the work that you're doing. So that channel shuts down immediately. And then what happens? You basically have zero pipeline. And this idea of building a pipeline, it takes months. It takes months and months to build pipeline and to build the systems and put everything in place to start getting work. And, marketing it's a long-term play. It's not something that you do immediately and then you get a client tomorrow. And so if you're only relying on word of mouth and referrals, your business is at risk for sure. Like, it's just at risk if there's not another channel or another pipeline that you can rely on to bring in business. And so that's really that's the business case for why you want to be doing marketing, why you want to be introducing other channels, trying to identify ways that you can use social media to bring in and start conversations, trying to identify ways you can use your website to bring in conversations or do cold outreach in these different ways. So you never know what the right answer is, but it's worth it to kind of test them and see what works best for your market.
Yeah, and one thing I would say too, I think as an industry, for a long time, like, marketing has been such a, you can't do that type of thing. And I think we're getting to the point where we're past now that point, and I think we have to see ourselves as a business too, not just I'm not trying to be stereotypical, but I don't want to be altruistic and, we're going to save the world with architecture. But at the end of the day, we're running a business. And in order to do that, you have to create a brand. And that's my position. My position is that I'm helping run a business, and I can't keep that business open if people don't know I'm there. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And so you gotta get out there, and you gotta keep expanding. And again, to find other clients, because just because you have repeat clients, what happens if they don't have a project? Right. And then you're not ready and prepared.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. We can't save the world too well if we don't have any clients that are paying us to do the work.
You got it.
that's kind of the challenge that we find ourselves in. Yeah. So that's awesome. Okay. Well, let's talk about what have your thoughts been so far, and have you done any testing up to this point in terms of, marketing for the firm?
Not really, to be honest with you. I just came in 3 months ago or so, and so I'm kind of settled in. But I'm at the point now where it's time to do it. So no, that's why we're having this conversation, is to see how you do it from scratch and how you do two different things, right? Architecture and structural engineering.
Yeah, architecture engineering. Yeah, and what resources do you have at your disposal, just to kind of help to ground this conversation? Is it just you? Is there anyone else on the team that's going to be helping you? Is there an agency? What do you have?
At the moment, it's going to probably start out with me. But I know, for example, we have other team members that like when we do, let's say if we needed images or past projects, I'll definitely rely on them for that type of stuff to be able to get the content or at least some to start with. But at the moment, I do see it probably as myself starting this and then seeing where it goes from there.
Okay, cool. All right, so I think there's a few things that we have to buy into first when we're starting basically a marketing strategy from scratch. The first thing that we have to buy into is that marketing, like I said earlier, is a long-term play. Sometimes there's things that we can do when you see an immediate impact, like, and we'll talk about what some of those strategies could be. But most of the time, this idea of marketing, it's a long-term play and it's a long-term investment and it's a consistent investment so that you stay top of mind for people around you. And so this is all kind of focused around this idea of dark social. Is that a concept that you've ever heard before?
I've heard of it, but I can't remember the what it is exactly. I've heard of it though.
Cool. Yeah. So dark social, it sounds ominous, but it's not. It's essentially the thought process that goes behind someone making a buying decision. When it comes to marketing, there's this huge conversation around attribution, right? Attribution meaning like, where did someone come in from? Like you're saying, we have referrals that came in and we get word of mouth. And then obviously if someone comes in from your LinkedIn profile, you want to see that. Or if someone comes in from a contact form on your website, you want to see that. With the idea being that you're using data to then inform future decisions, right? Like if you see that most of your clients are coming in through your website, well, then you probably want to double down on your website and send more traffic to your website, for example, to get more clients. But the problem with attribution is that it rarely tells the entire story. For example, someone might have heard about WLP Associates last year when they saw your sign on a project that you're building around Grand Rapids right now. Business owner might have seen that, right? And so then what do? Maybe they're thinking about doing a project themselves, and so they then go and search for architecture firms. Maybe they can't quite remember what the name of the firm was. So they're searching for architecture firms. They're scrolling through Google. They see, okay, WLP Associates. All right, cool. So then they click the link. They check out your website. They're like, all right, yeah, maybe this is something interesting. They're just still thinking about it. And then they find your Instagram profile. They find you on LinkedIn. They go and follow you there, right? They're just like checking you out. Like, it's not something I'm ready to move up forward on right now, but I'm just kind of like feeling out the situation. And then they go to a local AIA event, or sorry, not a local AIA event. They go to a local like gathering of other business owners or something, right? And they are talking with another business owner that just happened to work with WLP Associates like last year, right? And so they ask him about what their experience was, right? And then they eventually come in and maybe they go back to the website again and fill out your contact form, and then they come through, and it's like that whole process. Now, what marketing attribution would say was that person came in through your website, right? That's what marketing attribution is going to say. But again, that doesn't tell the whole story, because what actually played a part in that was also, hey, your social channels, keeping them top of mind, your website supporting their interest and providing additional context into it, and obviously the person that they had a conversation with that also supported their experience with you. So that's what dark social is. It's like these things that it's these things that we can't track in the process, but that is really what marketing, like that's what you're investing in when you invest in marketing. Like, you might not see that immediate return, but what happens is you get your name out there more often and you get your name into more conversations if you're doing it correctly, right? If you're doing it correctly. And so that's what you're investing in when you're investing in marketing. It's a little bit of unknown. You might not get the direct attribution right away, but over time, like if you look back at this in a year, after you start this marketing venture, what you should see next year, like over the next year, is definitely a bump in revenue, a bump in more projects, a bump in requests, right, to work with you all. And that's like a softer way to measure it. But all to say, it's a long game, and it's really difficult to track. It's really difficult to track.
Sure. Yeah, and two, I mean, I've always heard it say the best time to be marketing is when you're busy, right? And it's because of everything you just said.
Yeah.
That it's, typically what, 3 to 4 months, I think, on average, before someone may or may not even be sitting at the table talking to you about a specific project that they have. So, yeah, definitely, and I think that's one of the reasons I want to start now is because it's going to take time, and so there's no better time than now. I mean, I know it's cliche, but that's kind of how I feel, is that we got to get it going now, so that as we have these referrals, as we have people giving us projects, we can start bringing in, hopefully by Q1, a new client, or kind of that long-term thought through it.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. All right, so let's talk about what your options are. So you pretty much have limited resources. It's really just you, and you're doing this on top of your work as an architect, right? Managing firm, managing clients, doing all of the work that you're doing. So I'm personally of the opinion, and I see this be the most effective, that you should just focus on one channel if you're just getting started, right? With the idea that you're going to take what you learn at this one channel and you'll eventually apply it to other channels. And when I say channel, right, I mean like one channel would be the website. I'm going to focus on the website. One channel could be LinkedIn. I'm going to focus on LinkedIn. One channel could be Instagram. Whatever that channel is, right? Just focus on one of them first, especially when you have limited resources, because each channel is a little bit different, right? There's different things that you want to focus on. There's different ways to attract the attention that you need on that channel. And so starting with one just allows you to be very focused on what your one goal for that channel is. So I would start there, because then in like 6 months, you'll have enough that you've learned where it makes sense, and even enough of a content archive built up where it makes it really easy to then move over to another channel. I'm just going to take the things that performed really well on this one channel for the first 6 months, and I'm going to repurpose them on Instagram. I'm going to add some blogs to our website for the things that were most attractive, for example. So I think that's one thing. Do you have an idea of what channel to you is feels like it might be most, you have the most affinity for, might be best for you, where your clients are at, where your audience is at?
So I know you said one, and I'm going to give you two, but I think there's a little bit of the website that was mentioned to me. So I think the website, possibly doing a small some refresh on our current website.
Yep.
But if I was talking to like socials, I definitely think LinkedIn would be another opportunity, and probably the one that I would start with first, to see if I can bring in and get our name out there and get in front of people that might have see if we can find those people that have projects or that are like-minded, etc. So
yeah,
that's the two that I would probably say are on top of mind.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Usually, especially if a website hasn't been updated in years, in a really long time, it's probably a good idea to touch that just before you start doing marketing, because that is the default place that people go. That's the default place that you send people. So whether that means that even if you're just putting, you're really minimizing it, putting up just one well-marketed page, like up the website or something like that, that's usually better than having, 15 pages spread out that are pretty outdated and might not tell the whole story in the way that you want it to. So yeah, focusing on the website is a good one. And then LinkedIn, I freaking love LinkedIn. Uh-huh. Because it's where the decision makers are at, right? And this is where the people hang out, where you're going to get higher quality conversations. Now, let's compare it to the alter ego of LinkedIn, right? Which is Instagram. Architects love Instagram because it's a visually forward platform. And in general, you're going to get more engagement on Instagram than you will on LinkedIn. Like if you just take a post of one of the projects that you do and you post one of them to an Instagram profile and you post another one to LinkedIn, I would be willing to bet that you're going to get just more engagement, meaning like more likes, maybe more comments on Instagram than you will on LinkedIn. The problem is, though, on the Instagram side, those people that are engaging and liking the content that you're putting out probably aren't clients or potential clients. They're probably just people that like the picture that you posted. Versus on LinkedIn, the people that are then going to engage with the content that you're producing, much more likely to be like high quality, to be a potential client at some point in the future. And so that's why I like LinkedIn, because the competition is much lower and the quality is much higher. in terms of who it is that you're targeting. It just becomes significantly easier to target. When it comes to running a successful architecture firm, taxes play a huge role in your financial strategy. Even if you've already filed, being proactive this year can significantly lower your future liability. And now that I'm working with Gelt, I finally feel like I have a partner I can trust to handle everything from my business to my personal taxes, and I'm excited to collaborate then for this season of Growth Detect. Think of Gelt as the ultimate CPA for firm owners. Their tech platform provides personalized guidance to help maximize deductions, tax credits, and savings. Plus, their in-house team of expert CPAs offers tailored tax strategies designed to minimize risk and grow your wealth. And when I first onboarded with Gelt, they shared strategies that saved me tens of thousands of dollars. So if you're ready for a premium, proactive strategy to optimize your firm's financial health, you have to check out Gelt.
One of the strategies also that I thought about was to do maybe some more video content of some sort. So whether that's a YouTube or putting something, some video, get to know us, that's not the right way to say that, but putting something video on the website so that when people go there, they kind of get, it's not, although you're not speaking to them, you're speaking to them, right, directly. And they kind of can get to know you maybe a little bit through that medium. I've heard people doing that. Do you see that as a benefit eventually down the road?
I mean, video content is always great for that reason, right? It's the closest way that you can connect with people, right? They hear your voice, they see your face, they see your mouth moving. And so from that perspective, it makes them feel like they know you more than just reading the words on the website. So that's good. It is like, it takes significantly more effort. I can tell you that for sure after starting this podcast, which I do, is both on audio and on video, and putting a little bit more effort into YouTube as of recently, that it takes way more effort. So I wouldn't start there for that reason. But yeah, it's definitely something to think about. So if you're going to jump into that, right, I can think of a reference point. So one is F9 Architecture, who they run Inside the Firm, the Inside the Firm podcast. Yep. Great guys. They actually just went through, Alan Lance, they just went through and kind of revamped the video that they have on their website, which I just saw recently. And so looking at that as a reference point, maybe not a bad idea. Another thing that you can look at is that what they're actually called is video sales letters, VSL for short, right? And that's typically used, like when you look at it, you're going to think, oh, this is like a marketing thing, which it is, right? The VSL, the video sales letter, is typically like, hey, when you land on a website, like when you click an ad, and you land on a website and it's literally just like the video and then there's a CTA, like click here to learn more or continue or something like that. That's what a video sales letter is, but they're extremely effective. And there's a lot of strategies around like the best way essentially to get the person to take the next step. Right? Because the main goal with a video sales letter is to kind of like gain trust really quickly and get that person super interested and curious to take the next step, which in your case would probably be like the next step would be to, fill out an information form or to give you a call or to have a meeting or to schedule a meeting with you all. And so looking at the strategies that are embedded in video sales letters probably wouldn't be a bad place to look. Sure. If you were thinking about doing a video.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons I thought about that too is because that sets you apart. In our industry, we don't see that yet a whole lot. I think it's slowly getting integrated, but I definitely think that's one way of just setting yourself apart and being slightly different enough to keep top of mind as someone.
Yeah. But before you would even do that, before you do the VSL or make a video specifically for the website, I would focus on how if you wanted to move into video, right, I would focus on video on one channel, right? So video on LinkedIn, for example. And LinkedIn just started, they're slowly becoming a little bit more video centric, right? We've all seen like some of these vertical videos popping in on their phone app or just more videos hitting our timeline than what was happening before. And so they're slowly getting there. And that's a really good test too. So you can start video content, whether it's you, whether it's someone in the firm, whether it's other principals that are sharing some kind of content, and that can just be done on your phone. Like that doesn't have to be high production because iPhones are pretty good now, so you don't need a whole lot. But let's talk about the type of content, right? Because that's obviously the next question. So we know, hey, let's focus on 1 to 2 channels, right? You need to update the website a little bit, but let's just focus on LinkedIn as a channel right now. So the type of
Yep.
content that you post. Big mistake that most architects make, in my opinion, right, is that they just post stuff that's kind of like celebrating them, celebrating their work. Here's a project that we
Yep.
just did. So excited to show it all to you. Let me know what you think. Like, or it's like really flat and dry, right? Like, here's a project that was just, and it's like it's written, it's written like it's being like sent in as a report for college or something like that. You know, really, really dry. And so, what you want that content to focus on is content that either one helps you to establish your authority and knowledge in a market and in your industry. That's one version of content that you can do. Another version is like content that your clients need when they're in that decision-making process about an architect, right? So on one end, you know, for you, if you're doing like architecture and engineering, a normal A&E firm might post a project and say, you know, thanks for including us in this, and we're so excited that this is done. It's not bad to post pictures of your projects, but instead of doing it and saying it, you know, celebrating what you're doing, you can post a project and say, client came to us with these challenges, right? This is how we addressed every single challenge that they had. This was the outcome. And like, here's a testimonial that they said about that, right? So you're starting, it's client-centric instead of you-centric. That's really the shift that you want to make on all of your content and when you're thinking about it. And you can even think about it as like a content matrix, right? So the type of topics that you would talk about. So for that, I would say like, hey, you know, Jason, what are some of the common challenges that your clients face, or the common goals that your clients have before they come to work with you? Like, why are they coming to work with you? Are they looking to expand? Are they looking to grow? Are they looking to update? Like, what are the things that they're looking to do?
So to answer that, I think I'm going to answer it a little bit into two parts. The first one is like, if I'm thinking where I just came from, if I'm looking at multifamily, going after that, that's probably more developer driven. And in that regard, they're looking for a couple of different things, right? Not only are they looking for someone that can do the project, they want to do someone that can do it, you know, efficient, quick, and on time and on budget kind of a thing, right? So those pain points are probably a little bit different than someone coming to us for a single family home, right? Like, so that's where for me, trying to figure out the two or three categories that we as a firm want to hit first off. Really, I think that's key. Not to say we can't do a restaurant or a whatever, you name it, doesn't matter. But what are the main places we want to go? Is that industrial? Is that multifamily and whatever, right? And then focus on those and say, okay, these clients, industrial clients, are coming to us because they want to expand and they want to do it quickly so that they can get their lines up and running, right? Like that's a different pain point. So to me, I think that's where I have to kind of understand what those target markets are and then dive into it more, because I've been a little removed and I'm kind of jumping in trying to figure that out. So I'm going to have to rely on my team members to understand where they're getting those pain points and kind of talk to them about that. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of what I see it as, is like focusing on these first and then coming back around. And, you know, let's say, like I said, let's say we get a restaurant. That's great. We love to do those, but that may not be our niche, right? That may not be our target market.
Yeah, and I think that's the right way to think about it. Like, I would focus on 1, 2, 3. I mean, I wouldn't focus on more than 3 when you're getting started in terms of the markets that you're focusing on. The way that I would personally prioritize those markets is I would think about the best combination of which markets right now that you're working on bring in the most revenue and do you enjoy working on the most, right? Do you have the skills? And that's like easy for the firm to do. I'd think about those two, and I'd focus on out of the 10 markets that you all are hitting right now, I'd focus on the top 2 or 3 that are best answers to those 2 questions. And that's what I would personally probably recommend marketing toward. Just that way you're able to double down, and you're also like, you can better support that like financially with the returns that you're going to be getting. Okay, so that's a perfect example. So let's just take the multifamily, for example, because you mentioned, hey, you're usually working with developers and they're looking for efficiency. They're looking for things to be on time and on budget, right? So content that you can make around that is like, here's 5 ways to make your development more efficient, right? That's content.
Uh-huh.
Here's 7 mistakes that usually cause a project to be delayed, right? There's a piece of content. Or here's three reasons why we deliver 95% of our projects on budget. You're hitting and touching those pain points, and those are listicle versions of it, right? So listicle is like a type of, I'm choosing so many different things. That's one type of content. Then you can do ones that are on stories, right? It's like, so like this client came to us and they were really price sensitive and they were really concerned about projects going over budget because they had talked to several other architects and the numbers they were giving them was just making their eyes like pop out of their heads, right? We worked with them on what that budget was, set up realistic expectations, help them walk them through the process, and was able to deliver them a project that they were really happy with that was on budget, right? So there's like a story version of that, a story version of that. And then there can be like a contrarian take on that, right? Which might be like, the contrarian take would be the estimate that your architects are giving you isn't accurate, right?
Okay.
That's,
yeah.
That's like a contrarian take. Here's why it's not accurate, right? It's not taking into account additional services. They're giving you an unrealistic timeline. They're making promises that they can't keep, whatever those things are. And that's something that both helps you establish yourself as an authority and in these different areas. And the reason that this type of content works better is because it's specifically targeted, like who's going to be interested in that content. It's only going to be like a developer that's going to look at that and click through that, right? And that's fine. Like it doesn't matter if it only gets 5 likes. If the 5 likes are other developers, that then guess what? You're going to send them a message and be like, hey, I saw that you were interested in my post. Is this something that you all are thinking about right now? Like, that's really how simple it is. Put posts out there, see who's engaging with the posts and then start reaching out to them personally. Don't pitch them like right when they engage with your posts, but just say, hey, saw that you've been engaging, really appreciate the comments that you've been leaving. Is this something that you all are thinking about right now? Or what projects are you doing? Or I've seen some of your work around town. Seems like you're doing great things. Like just getting a conversation started and getting relationships started, especially with the larger projects that you're doing, like with these developers and different things. Like that's really what it is. Like these are long-term relationships that you're building. And so that's why you don't want to like jump right in and be like, hey, do you want to have a meeting to talk about it? Like, pause, just start with a conversation first, get about our understanding of them and build a relationship before you would ask for something. So that's how I would think about LinkedIn. There's another option that I want to talk about that is one of my favorite ways to expand into a new market. And it's relatively cheap. And it helps you to get your name out there pretty quickly. Actually, there's 2 different ways to think about this. There's 2 options. One is warm and one is cold. And so when we're talking about outreach or outbound, right, that's when we're taking we are taking the action of reaching out to our market, right? So we're sending an email out to people that may or may not know us, or we're making phone calls to different developers that may or may not know us, right? So that's what I mean when I say outbound and outreach, versus inbound is someone coming to us, someone coming to our website and filling out a form. Outbound is us going to them and saying, hey, are you looking for an architect? And so with outbound, there's warm or cold. Warm are people that are familiar with you. They've already heard about you. They might have expressed interest, or maybe they follow you on LinkedIn or something like that. Versus cold is someone that, at least to your knowledge, probably doesn't know who you are and probably isn't familiar with you. Like there's no established relationship yet. So I think warm and cold are both good for different reasons, right? Cold is a really great way to get a pulse of a market and understand where you can fit in, right? So if you like made a list of 100 developers in Western Michigan that focused on multifamily, and you basically just called them, and your goal is to kind of understand, are they working with any architects? Are they happy with the architects that they're working with? What are the common struggles that they're seeing with the architects that they're working with, right? Like that's the information you want to gain. And obviously the goal of the call would be to then like set up a meeting, right? With them to see if there's, to show them how you work and see if there's any, opportunity to have a partnership together, right? So that's the benefit of cold. I think you just get an amazing pulse on the market, and it doesn't take a lot. Like, list out 100 people. You could call 100 developers probably over a week, just focusing like, 30 minutes to an hour a day on it or something. And you'd walk away from that week having a pretty strong understanding of like, it seems like this market's pretty packed. There doesn't seem to be need for other architects, or Like everyone that I'm talking to is talking about this problem, right? And so you begin to very quickly understand like how you can position yourself as a differentiator in a new market. That's why I really like cold calling specifically. Cold emailing can kind of do that, but it's slower and it's harder to get responses out of that. And then there's warm outreach. So warm outreach is a really fast way to get into a new market. For example, with the new single family home residential that you're doing, or with the multifamily residential that you're doing. And warm email is taking the relationships that you already have and reaching out to them to ask if they happen to know anyone that might be interested in speaking to you about X, Y, and Z, like about the new markets that you're doing, right? So that's reaching out to maybe other developers that you've worked with in the past, and they might be multifamily developers. But the important thing with this outreach is that you're not asking them for their business. You're kind of asking them to like borrow their network, right? Do you happen to know anyone that might be interested in working with us? So when you reach out to them, it's like, hey, great news over here on this side. WLP Associates is starting to expand and take on more single family and multifamily residential projects. This is the type of work that we're planning to do. Here's some examples of things that we've done in the past. Reached out to you because we've had, great experience working together in the past. Do you happen to know anyone that you think would be interested in chatting with us about this? Right? It's like a really soft ask, because if you send that out to 50 people that you have good relationships with, I'd be hard pressed to say that you wouldn't get like 5 to 10 meetings out of that, right? That's the general conversion rate for warm outreach. You should like anything at 10% actually is really good. So if you reach out to 100, then if you get 10 meetings out of that, that'd be amazing. But even if you think about the effort that goes into that, even if it's 2 or 3%, right? So you get 2 or 3 meetings out of that. And then if you take your firm's normal win rate, maybe that's 25%, maybe that's 50%. And you get, you basically spend a week doing outreach and you get one, whatever it is, $100,000, $200,000 project. Like that's a pretty good return. That's a pretty good return on investment.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
So I would highly recommend like looking at things that feel a little less scalable, right? Like warm outreach isn't super scalable, but it's an amazing way to generate interest in a market when you're expanding. And it's also just a great way to like it's a good way to also like pour gasoline on the fire. If you all are already getting most of your work from referrals and word of mouth, then reach out to all of your clients for the past year and say, hey, we're expanding into these markets. Do you happen to know anyone else that we should be talking to? That's a really simple ask, right?
Yeah, and I think that also could be a good way talking with some of the contracting teams that we work with. I think that's a good way to start off because it's a low barrier. They're not feeling like you're trying to sell them, right? But conversely, they could turn around and say, well, I'm not sure about them down the street, but you know what? Actually, we were just talking, and there could be that potential. But the goal is not necessarily, although that's the opportunities there, the goal is not necessarily to come right out and maybe say that.
Yes, you're exactly right. When you're reaching out to someone and you're saying, hey, do you happen to know of anyone else that might be interested? If they are interested, they're certainly going to let you know. So don't be worried that that's not going to happen, right? They will. But yeah, the fact that you're kind of acting like, oh, maybe they don't need it or something like that might even make them want it more. But it feeds into other psychological principles too. Like people just want to help other people, right? They want to be helpful to someone else, especially if it's someone that they have a good relationship with or an active like working relationship with them. Then they want to keep you happy too, right? They want to prove that they're thankful for that relationship in these different ways. And so, using that leverage, using the reputation that you all have already built to expand that market even more and to kind of get leads in quickly, that's the fastest way. Like to me, that's a version of marketing. Like you can actually see immediate results. You can see immediate results from cold calling, and you can see immediate results from from doing warm outreach, whether that's an email or a phone call. Like you can absolutely like build up a pipeline pretty quickly. Like if you focus on that for a month, I would be surprised if you don't get 5 to 10 meetings, with potential clients. versus the other one, like LinkedIn is going to be a little bit more of a slow roll, but it's not a bad thing to do.
Sure.
It's going to take some more time. It takes time to create the content and do these different things. And so as your resources are limited, just think about that. Like if I were you, yeah, I do want to build up a LinkedIn presence and start posting things and start creating content that's relevant to my audience and doing these different things. It's going to take a little bit longer to do that. Like if you only have 5 hours a week, I'd focus on the things that can provide like immediate value first, right? And to me, that's more like the warm and cold outreach to begin expanding into the new market. And then as you expand into the new market and as you are now more actively focused on the fact that you are going to be kind of like leading the marketing here, you're going to become more aware and like you're going to be listening for different things in your conversations with your clients, right? You're like, oh, that's I just heard that problem from another client. I should do a piece of content around that, right? Or that can be broken up into several pieces of content. And so think about that, but you almost like you want to be led by the things that your clients are telling you with the content that you're creating, because that's also the things that other clients like that are going to want to hear and know. Does that make sense?
It does. Yep.
Cool. So we talked about starting a marketing strategy from scratch, right? Nothing has been done in a long time. It's kind of a legacy firm. It's been around there for a long time, getting a ton of word of mouth and referrals, which means that you serve your clients really well, they're happy, and they talk about you and they become advocates. Great thing to have. But to avoid, the risk of basically only bringing in clients from one channel, we want to expand and have these other ways that we can also build pipeline and bring in clients. And so one way is focusing on one channel and getting really good at that one channel. So in your case, it sounds like it's going to be LinkedIn, focus on LinkedIn and specifically create content that helps solve problems that your clients have, or at least are thinking about when they're going to do a project. And then the other half of this is doing different warm and cold outreach as you expand to the new markets and leveraging these incredible relationships that the firm has already made to branch out and to build pipeline when you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And then any questions about that?
No, I think part of that is just getting and doing, right? It's the actual act
the big part of
starting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
that is it.
Yeah, that is always a challenge, which is funny. So I know, thank you so much for being a part of the studio and for being so active in the studio. Just curious to know, like, what has your experience been in the studio so far, and what would you say to other architecture leaders that are thinking about something like the studio?
Yeah, so far it's been good to get around like-minded people. It seems like every day if there's a new member that we all are having similar issues or conversations about how to approach certain things. And so I think that alone is so beneficial, right? Just getting around people that have a common concern or questions and just being able to have a peer-to-peer group, and be able to shoot ideas off of people that you think might be the craziest thing, or not.
Yeah.
And so I think to me that's been really good. And then the fact that we are able to have those one-on-ones or have the bigger group discussions where we're talking about specific items, and that's been beneficial. But I think one of the best things is we starting to get people to hold each other accountable, right? Like I just said, like half the battle is getting started. And so being able to check in on people and ask how this went or how that went, I think is been beneficial as well, and to try to keep that momentum going.
Cool. Yeah. And I appreciate you being so active. So, Jason, he has shared a lot of his knowledge in terms of things that he's done around different pricing and proposal strategies. You were just sharing a win recently, right? Because you just changed up your proposal strategy and you've been seeing positive results from that. So lots of good things coming from it. But I know that we all appreciate you sharing your knowledge and wisdom in the studio as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my opinion of that is, you can hold things as close to the vest as you want, and maybe there are some things you do, but the profession's not going to get any better in some regards, right? Like it's going to not change until we all kind of drop that guard and realize that we all have similar things that we're trying to figure out. And that to me is why I love it. I love being able to talk to those people that have those same issues and stuff. And it feels like that is the group that's being built there. It's people that want to have those conversations and aren't afraid to have them. So yeah, absolutely. It's my privilege.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, that is true. That is the nature. Like if you are an architecture leader and you're listening to this and you're someone that's like why don't we talk about business more? I want other architects that are open to talking about the challenges that they're facing and how they're overcoming them and the different tests that they're doing. Then yeah, the studio is definitely for you. So I appreciate that. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Jason. Hope you have a great time. And thanks for joining us on the Growth Tech podcast.
Yeah, my privilege. Thanks, Tyler.
All right. Thank you so much for being a Growth Tech and listening in on this actionable episode. Be sure to subscribe so you can continue to learn exactly how to overcome the business challenges that every architect faces. And if you want a taste of what's inside the studio, then go to growthtech.com/join to subscribe to the Growth Tech newsletter read by more than 10,000 architecture leaders every Sunday morning. I'll see you in the next episode.